With me, as well as we're watching this coverage, is Candida Moss. She's a CBS News Papal contributor and a professor of theology at Notre Dame University, and Monsignor Anthony Figueiredo, who is often seen in Rome at the Vatican as well, but joins us in New York City this week. This is the first moment now that we're seeing the Pope. He's getting ready, it looks, to reemerge from his fiat right here in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. This must be a stunning sight for someone who's never seen New York City before, don't you think, Monsignor?
Yes, and I'm just looking out. He's going to get into his Pope-mobile now, and I'm just wondering what's going through his mind, seeing these huge skyscrapers and these huge crowds. I'm amazed at the crowds. They really have come out for this Holy Father. I'm sure he's a little bit daunted by all this security. You know, this is the Pope who last week in Rome, a couple of weeks ago, literally went to the opticians by himself, you know, with a couple of policemen, and just walked the streets of Rome.
What do the Swiss Guard have to say about that? The Swiss Guard in the Vatican are the ones who are charged with protecting the safety and security of the pontiff.
It's interesting, Contessa. A number of Swiss Guards are here, actually. They're in fact here. I'm looking at them right now. The taller men, and they're not dressed in their traditional costumes, whatever you call them.
It certainly would make it easier to distinguish them, though, from New York City security and Secret Service.
What I think they find is that this is a very unpredictable Pope, which they have told me makes their work much, much more difficult. But they've learned really to go with the Holy Father. He wants to be with the crowds. He wants to be open, even in this Pope-mobile. If you look, he's open. That's the way he wants it, and that's the way these Swiss Guards are reacting.
I just want to point out, yesterday when we saw the Pope in the Pope-mobile going to the Basilica, the streets there are wider and broader. They're more, the avenues are broader. In New York City, even the avenues, our major thoroughfares, north and south in the city, are somewhat more contained and narrower. So here you're seeing, with vehicles on both sides of the Pope-mobile and the crowds, the Pope is going to be much closer to the crowds, even though there are still those barricades that keep the crowds on the sidewalk separate from the avenue where the Pope will be driving down in this case. And yesterday, we saw the most interesting meeting of the Pope and this little girl, little Sophia, who made her way through the barricades and you're seeing Cardinal Dolan now right at the rear, the left rear of Pope Francis, truly a beloved cardinal here in New York City. He came from Milwaukee, where I knew him when he was Archbishop of Milwaukee and was beloved there. Milwaukee was very upset to lose this Archbishop to New York City, but Pope Benedict had made him the Archbishop and then elevated him to Cardinal, and here he is now, standing beside or behind Pope Francis. This must be such a joyous, honor day for the Cardinal as well.
It is, and I'm looking at the Cardinal and the Holy Father. They're really joking, I think, between themselves. They're two great characters. They're two great jokesters in many ways. And I think they're like two kids in a candy store. I'm just wondering, you know, the Holy Father, you're talking about security there, Contessa. Something that strikes me as well here in the city is just those high-rise buildings. It must be a security nightmare because...
And every time the president comes, it's something that the NYPD and the Secret Service have to think about when the president's driving through. And of course, the president has a bulletproof limousine. The Pope-mobile, weren't you telling us that he doesn't prefer to have all of that bulletproof glass around him? He understands that there's a security concern, but he feels like, well, it was funny that he says, oh, you know, I don't have that much more left. I'm an old man. But also because you have to believe that he thinks his life is in God's hands.
Absolutely. He truly believes that, and his first mission is to be with the people, Contessa. That is his love, his first love, and nothing is going to stop him doing that. He's a very kind Pope, he's a very gentle Pope, but on this issue, he is unmovable.
And Candida Moss joins me as well. We have seen the Pope in the Pope-mobile. We saw it in Washington, D.C., and I was just getting ready to tell the story of little Sophia, who ran out to greet the Pope. And it's so interesting how it parallels the story in the Bible where the disciples were trying to keep small children away from Jesus, and he said, no, 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 suffer little children. Don't forbid them to come unto me. And it was in so many ways the Pope followed in Christ's example, allowing this little girl to come out and give him her message.
Exactly, and that's just one example of the way in which Pope Francis follows in the footsteps of Jesus. He also follows his teachings that he gave to the disciples about not taking money or food or extra clothing with them when they go out to evangelize. That kind of life of poverty and humility is something that this Pope has embraced. You also have to wonder, New York is unlike any other city in the world, especially because of those buildings, those tall buildings that you sort of feel are sort of coming in on you because they're so tall and the streets are so narrow. And that's going to be something Francis hasn't seen.
Look at all these cell phones out. And when I see this, I will tell you, I think to myself, it's going to be on television. There are professionals with cameras and whatever. They're going to get a better shot than what you will. Just enjoy the moment. Just live in this moment. But maybe that's just me as a mom now, wanting people to breathe it in and feel the energy of the crowd and really focus on being as opposed to preserving a memory.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Pope Francis has talked about how technology can actually come between people and direct personal encounter. So there's a particular irony here to everyone taking selfies and video streaming.
I wish I had an explanation for you right now about what a semi-truck, oh, it looks like maybe this is the traffic vehicle that has the flashing light on top. But it's such an anomaly when we're talking about the pontiff coming through to see a vehicle of that size. And you're seeing now the security surrounding the Pope Mobile, along with security vehicles on each side. Given what you've told us both about the Pope's desire to be with the people, you can't imagine that he likes that very much, where the security vehicles are literally between the Pope and the people lining the sidewalks.
If he had his choice, Contessa, he would be out of that Pope Mobile and he'd be walking the crowds. In fact, look, he's talking to his head of security there, and I'm sure he's saying to him, can I get out of here? He's hearing those church bell ring, and I'm amazed at these crowds. Have you seen anything like that, Contessa?
Well, you know, it's interesting because on Thanksgiving Day parade, often you see crowds that deep, and again, from people who come from all over the world. But especially here where the sidewalks on Fifth Avenue, the sidewalks can be rather narrow in some places, and so it doesn't leave a lot of room for people to pile back deep. There are other areas on 6th Avenue, for instance, just one avenue over. The sidewalks are wider, and there would be more space for people to gather and see him maybe from 10 or 12 or even 20 people deep in some places, where on Fifth Avenue, there just simply is not that kind of room. So this is an NYPD semi-truck now in front of the Pope Mobile. So this is also going to be blocking, to some degree, the Pope's view forward. It looks like he's really focusing side to side, trying to make eye contact and wave to the crowds to his left and right, and not facing forward so much. But that view on Fifth Avenue up, if the big vehicle weren't there, would be something to behold, and for the pontiff would be memorable as well. And again, the paramount concern of security for an NYPD, and this is something the New York Police Department does as well as any in the world. Don't forget that this was a city that was hit by terrorists on 9/11. Pope Francis will be attending the 9/11 memorial, and so this is security in this case is something that the NYPD can handle very well. All right, my producer's just telling me we're just getting in now. Do you see, this is Donald Trump at Trump Towers, which is north of St. Patrick's Cathedral by maybe 6 or 7 blocks. And he's up on a balcony looking down, waving at the pontiff as the Pope goes by. Isn't that incredible? Donald Trump has one of the most amazing views ever from his office in Trump Towers. It looks north over Central Park. It's a beautiful vista. And now to see him out, he clearly has a beautiful view down Fifth Avenue as well, where he can see the procession in which the Pope is riding now, going down Fifth Avenue. Let's go back to the live pictures now of the Pope on his way to St. Patrick's Cathedral. Massive crowds outside. And I understand that there are barricades up in some areas. There is a point in Manhattan where you needed a ticket even to be on the sidewalk to be part of the crowd that waves to Pope Francis. Others had gathered early in the day to sort of stake out a spot near Central Park, north of St. Patrick's Cathedral, hoping that they would be able to get a glimpse of the Holy Father on this, his very first visit to New York City, and in fact his first visit to the United States of America. It seems hard to believe that when he was the Archbishop in his homeland, that he never made a trek north to the United States.
Yeah, in fact, Contessa, he traveled very little. I mean, there are great cities in Italy, such as Assisi, and you can imagine that he never went to Assisi from Rome. It was the first time he went there as Pope. So he really was a bishop who wanted to stay with his flock in Buenos Aires. Just wonderful seeing him. He's spotting people or certain images in the crowd, and he's blessing, and he's giving that traditional thumbs up sign, which has come to characterize him as a very normal man.
And there you're seeing some of the stadium seating that have been set up at Rockefeller Center in order to see the Pope's arrival here. That allows even more people. And again, that's an area where the sidewalk is rather narrow. There's not a lot of people. And here he's pulling up in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral, as I said, newly renovated, a beautiful, immense Gothic cathedral in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Cardinal Dolan now getting down from the Pope Mobile. I wonder if that's Cardinal Dolan's first ride in the Pope Mobile. Seems likely. And Pope Francis as well, surrounded by those dozens and dozens and dozens of security men. We know the service has already begun inside St. Patrick's. We saw some people behind the podium there a bit earlier. And now a greeting.
The rector of the cathedral, St. Patrick's, Monsignor Sullivan.
This is the governor, Andrew Cuomo, who's saying his hello to the Holy Father. It's interesting, in Cuba, where only 10% of the population is Catholic, we saw massive crowds, and in many cases, the young people there said they weren't particularly religious or faithful, but saw this as a historic opportunity to see the Pope and hear his message and hear it resonate. More people in the United States claim to be members of the Catholic religion, 1 in 4, but New York City, as well as Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Chicago, are seeing major declines in membership. So much so that they've had to close and merge parishes, while there has been tremendous growth in immigrant communities. So in Los Angeles, for instance, last year, 70,000 babies were baptized in the Catholic Church, more than Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia combined. So it's interesting to see all these people in New York City gathered when so many people now are choosing a path away from faith and a more secular existence.
And I think, Contessa, that you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the main reasons the Holy Father wished to come to the United States, to revive the faith. And just looking at these crowds and the enthusiasm, I think he's having some success. I mean, I think the real success will be seen afterwards. What will be
Maybe we won't know until everyone's in heaven. See how successful he really was.